What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie On Swift Horses. Here's a quick synopsis. The lives of a young couple, Muriel and Lee, are changed forever when they come to an agreement with Lee's brother Julius to all move out to San Diego, California. The film stars Daisy Edgar-Jones, Jacob Elordi, Will Poulter, Diego Calva, and Sasha Calle. One has to imagine that because of the success of Euphoria, that Jacob Elordi has had the opportunity to star in a superhero movie, and instead the actor has starred in Priscilla as Elvis, in my opinion, his best performance to date, Saltburn, where he goes full movie star, and with On Swift Horses, he's playing Julius, a complicated character, and I almost think the movie does him little favors by having characters say out loud that he's not like the rest of us. Elordi, however, is an actor who can sell all that and more. This is the first time he's really playing someone who is honestly in love with somebody, no offense to the Kissing Booth films, and it makes for a more vulnerable performance from the actor. He's really showcased his range and versatility over the last few years. Elordi will next star in the movies Frankenstein with Oscar Isaac and Mia Goth from Guillermo del Toro, Wuthering Heights with Margot Robbie reuniting with Saltburn director Emerald Fennell, and The Dog Stars with Margaret Qualley, Josh Brolin, Guy Pearce, and Benedict Wong from Ridley Scott, not to mention the long-awaited season 3 of Euphoria. His co-star in On Swift Horses, Daisy Edgar-Jones, has made all the right choices after the success of the miniseries Normal People, starring in the movies Fresh, Where the Crawdads Sing, and Twisters, movies that are all different and show at an early point in her film career she can star in any kind of movie. The one of those I was most impressed with is Twisters. She brought real emotions to a blockbuster film, which is, as you may know, incredibly rare to see. In On Swift Horses, the actress plays Muriel, who at the beginning of the movie has finally agreed to a marriage proposal from her boyfriend Lee. I would describe the character as a bit of a thrill seeker. She gets excitement from betting on horses and is bored by a traditional life. I found her to be the most complicated character in the movie. Not to spoil the ending at all, but I would say by the end she's the one character who doesn't really know what she wants in life. Daisy Edgar-Jones's next movies include A Place in Hell with Michelle Williams and Andrew Scott, and Here Comes the Flood with Denzel Washington and Robert Pattinson. Actor Will Poulter in On Swift Horses plays Lee, who is desperate to live a traditional life with his wife and brother. He's a very earnest character who I would deem as not super ambitious. I would also say he's the character in the movie who is the most assured. He knows who he is and what he wants, where the others kind of struggle with that at times. In lesser movies, he's the character that they would get you to dislike. But in this, he comes across as a sympathetic figure. In that, yes, you might as an audience member go, I don't really like this guy and I don't really agree with what he's saying, but the movie gets you to understand his line of thinking at the very minimum. It's also fair to watch this movie and label him as selfish. I mean, he gets his wife to sell her family home, or at least he thinks he does. I would also like to state it's hard to be overly critical of the character. I mean, the movie takes place in the 1950s. But looking at it through a modern lens, you could definitely walk away from this movie thinking that he's the villain. I personally think that's a reach, but to each their own. Diego Calva was the breakout star of the misunderstood Damien Chazelle film Babylon, alongside Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt, and one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to watch the film On Swift Horses was so that I could see the actor in something different. And he did not disappoint. The actor is electric as Henry, who begins a relationship with Elordi's Julius. The two of them have real chemistry, and at one point in the movie, he takes a huge risk and attempts to make a lot of money, and it ultimately backfires on him. Last and certainly not least, we we have Sasha Calle, who was fantastic as Supergirl in The Flash, and it's a similar thing in this movie. She doesn't have a ton of screen time as Sandra, Muriel's new neighbor, whom she has a fling with, but she makes a real impact, especially during her final scene with Daisy Edgar-Jones. These 5 actors are the reason I wanted to watch this movie. They were the big selling point, because I look at all 5 of them and I go, they have real star potential. No, they can't really sell a movie on their own yet, but that is not how you should be rating movie stars. You should be rating movie stars by what they are doing on screen. All 5 of the actors I just talked about can and have led a movie before. They can all be the most interesting thing on screen. The director of On Swift Horses is Daniel Minahan, who has directed movies before, but is best known for his work on numerous TV shows: 6 Feet Under, Deadwood, Game of Thrones, Hollywood, and The Girl from Plainview. I like his work on many of those and was impressed by him with On Swift Horses. He was given a good cast and got the absolute best out of them. General thoughts on the movie On Swift Horses. One of the things I really liked about this movie is it does not go in the direction you expect. With the early scenes, you think you're watching a movie about just a love triangle between a woman and 2 brothers, when in reality, the movie is far more complex than that. There's an interesting thread throughout the movie where the characters are asked if they've ever been in love before. The other big thing this movie has going for it is the incredible cinematography. It is one of the best looking movies of 2025. I always go for movies that make real life look amazing, and that's certainly the case for On Swift Horses. So almost every week on this podcast, I like to talk about the box office results for the movie I'm talking about, but this movie, On Swift Horses, was barely released in movie theaters, and this movie to me says something about the state of movies in general. Here you have 2 stars who are well known for hit TV shows and have started to have success in movies. Sometimes it feels like we have forgotten the mission should be to turn Jacob Elordi and Daisy Edgar-Jones into movie stars, to make them reasons to go to the movies. That's how you make movies popular. The more popular an actor is, the more of their movies people are going to go out and see, even if they're not that interested in the movie itself. I talk about this a lot on this podcast. What do you do with the movie that's not going to win in any way? It's not going to win at the box office, and it's not going to get a lot of awards recognition. What do you do with a movie like this? What happens to this movie after its life in a movie theater that wasn't very long in the first place? Is it just going to end up on some streaming service and we're never going to talk about it again? I mean, at this very moment, all you can really hope for is that Jacob Elordi and Daisy Edgar-Jones continue to rise and become major movie stars, and that people go back and revisit one of their earlier films like this. That's the absolute best you can do. This should be one of the movies that helps turn them into movie stars, not the afterthought that it's being treated as. I mean, it's a movie like this that makes me go, Netflix should just buy this movie and immediately release it on their streaming service, because I would imagine that this would be a top 10 movie of the week on Netflix. I mean, is that the best case that we can get for a movie like On Swift Horses? Because it's not going to make any real money at the movie theaters, clearly. I do for a minute want to talk a little bit more about Jacob Elordi, because it is interesting to look around and see what the other actors are Euphoria are doing to become movie stars. I think we're all in agreement. Zendaya is already a star. I thought Challengers was a huge success, and also now you have Sydney Sweeney, who had the movie Anyone But You. That was a big hit at the box office. She's got many movies on the way. She feels like the real deal. Hunter Schafer was in a Hunger Games movie and is going to be the lead of the new Blade Runner series. I guess the big question with Jacob Elordi is he going to be a mainstay? Is he going to cement himself as a big movie star moving forward? I believe the answer to be yes, because he's working with top tier directors, and at one point, one of these movies is really going to hit, and you could argue that Saltburn was a hit. It was a movie that might not have been a huge hit at the box office, but everybody on the internet was talking about it. It was at the very least in the zeitgeist. So while it's interesting to compare Jacob Elordi to his fellow Euphoria stars, it's also really interesting to compare Daisy Edgar-Jones to her Normal People co-star Paul Mescal. I mean, both have been in sequels to beloved movies recently. Mescal was in Gladiator 2, and Daisy Edgar-Jones, as I stated earlier, was in Twisters. Now, I believe Twisters was viewed as a bigger success than Gladiator 2. I like both movies equally. I thought both really worked on their own, but I think more people enjoyed Twisters than Gladiator 2. I'm always just super fascinated by how far a huge success on television can go towards making somebody into a movie star. I mean, you want all of these people from these shows to turn into movie stars. I felt the same way about the show Stranger Things. I feel the same way about The Bear. These shows are filled with talented young actors, but people keep saying it and we all keep hearing it. There are very few real legitimate movie stars in today's world. And that's why On Swift Horses is a very interesting case study, because here's a movie where two of these big television actors are coming together. Jacob Elordi from Euphoria and Daisy Edgar-Jones from Normal People. And you would think that the audiences who love those shows would come together and be into this movie. And for whatever reason, that was not the case. Was it because of lack of effort from the promotional side of things? I don't know the answer to that. Right? Like, I hate to admit this, but On Swift Horses would have found more success as a TV miniseries than a singular movie in the year 2025. I don't even see how you could debate that. I mean, no one has watched this movie. I wanted to talk about it because it was on the list of movies that I was interested in seeing. I saw the cast and I go, these are 5 actors I really like, I enjoy, and I want to see them come together for something. And then I started to read some of the reviews and they were mixed. This movie was way better than I expected it to be. It's that rare romantic movie that doesn't feel corny. It feels authentic. It feels like it has something really to say about life back then and life where we're at right now. I know a lot of people usually ask the question, what happened to romantic comedies? I think the thing that doesn't get asked about enough is what happened to earnest romantic dramas. I mean, yes, I get it. They can be corny at times and you have to get involved with the characters and they take themselves sometimes way too seriously. But I feel like sometimes when a movie like this takes itself seriously, it makes you buy into the stakes. It makes the movie feel bigger than it actually is when you care about the characters and what they are going through. Because let's face it, sometimes when you're watching a romantic movie, you could care less if the characters get together. You could care less about their fates. I, for instance, think one of the biggest problems with romantic comedies is sometimes they all feel the same. So you feel like you're watching a movie you've already seen 1,000 times. When it comes to On Swift Horses, it feels like a movie you haven't seen before. A, because it goes in directions you don't see coming, and B, because it looks better than most movies. One of the things that I've become more and more interested about when it comes to movies is how they are structured. And I think this movie, On Swift Horses, has an interesting structure in that there are 2 parallel storylines going on, one with Muriel and one with Julius. So it's hard to look at that structure and to see if the characters were given equal weight in the movie. I would say that the biggest problem the movie has going for it is that Jacob Elordi and Daisy Edgar-Jones have more chemistry with their co-stars Diego Calva and Sasha Calle than they do with each other. That's the tough thing about this movie, On Swift Horses, is that it has to convince you that the characters have fallen in love with multiple people, and that is a really hard hard thing to buy into. And if you don't buy into the movie. Yeah, so I can talk about the cinematography all I want and the actors, but if you, the audience, don't buy into the romantic elements of a romance movie, you are going to look at the movie and say it is a failure. Now, for me, all of those elements do come together. I do ultimately view this movie as a success. I went into it with very little expectations. I thought to myself, I just want to see Jacob Elordi and Daisy Edgar-Jones work together. And then it became something more. It became a movie where I was impressed by the actual filmmaking. I'm not going to sit here and argue that this is a perfect movie, but I think it is better than the notices that it's gotten from the public at large. Each of the 5 main characters, which I think is a lot for a movie like this, feels like a real human being. They do not feel like movie stereotypes. I just like the fact that this is a different kind of love story. The movie's also not edgy to grab your eyeballs. Like, there's a real purpose in what they are doing here. Every scene serves a purpose. It is building towards something. One of the things I really admire about the movie is it's not judgmental of its characters. It's not telling you how to feel about Julius or Muriel. It's just showing you, and it's letting you form your own opinion about the characters on screen. Will Poulter's Lee is the ultimate example of what I'm talking about. We've all seen those movies that turn that kind of guy into the villain of the movie, that turn him into a terrible human being, who turn him into the guy you don't want to root for on screen. But this movie doesn't do that. Instead, they do the far more realistic thing, which makes him a character who is in his own bubble, like he is only paying attention to his own little world, where he wants his wife and his brother to be a part of. When it comes to all 5 characters in the movie, you feel real empathy towards all of them, and that is an accomplishment in and of itself. Yeah, I want this to be a movie podcast where I talk about the biggest movies in the world at the moment, but I also want to do episodes on movies like On Swift Horses that didn't get that worldwide recognition, that aren't being talked about nearly enough. And yeah, my hope is maybe 1 or 2 of you goes and actually watches this movie. That would be great. But ultimately, I do feel like this is going to be a movie that people will revisit if these 2 people, Jacob Elordi and Daisy Edgar-Jones, continue to become bigger and bigger stars. That this will be a movie that will go back and go, wow, these 2 possibly Oscar-nominated actors are in this movie together. We should sit down and watch it. Because it is a bit of a bummer that this is a movie that feels like right now doesn't exist. It's very exciting that Jacob Elordi has upcoming movies with the likes of Margot Robbie and Oscar Isaac, and that Daisy Edgar-Jones is going to work with Denzel Washington, Michelle Williams, and Robert Pattinson. But you also want to see these young actors not only work with legends, but also their peers. I personally want to see young and upcoming actors work together. And this movie not only has the 2 main stars, it also has 3 others. Those are 5 actors who are worthy of your time in one movie. And if that doesn't sell you on seeing the movie, maybe this will. The final shot is of Jacob Elordi on a horse. I do feel like most people are on board with him being a future movie star. If you're not, I don't know why you're not. Like, he's proven himself with Saltburn, with Priscilla, and now with On Swift Horses. Like, this guy is the real deal. I think he's undeniable. He has the star power of a movie star, and he's also a really good actor who is only going to continue to get better and better. And the last thing I'll say about Jacob Elordi in this movie is I do believe he gives the best performance in the movie. And I think he's given the hardest task. Like I said earlier, he has to prove he's as interesting as all of the characters are describing him as. And Elordi is one of the only few young actors I could think of who can pull that off. It appears as though Daisy Edgar-Jones and Jacob Elordi are going to be given numerous opportunities to become stars. I just hope that Diego Calva and Sasha Calle are also given more opportunities because they were phenomenal in Babylon and The Flash, respectively, and they're also great in On Swift Horses. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out the movie On Swift Horses. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme, starring Benicio del Toro, Mia Threppleton, and Michael Cera. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.